What was the energy like? Because we can kind of hear, the engaged audience, but from your perspective, what was the vibe like in there?
The vibe is, and it's just like what they profile on the second show. The first show is all of this is a show. UAE Warriors 30 is a show that is they're trying to assemble the best fighters from all over the world. As you mentioned, we're here to make sure it's a global scope, and we're here to deliver action-packed, awesome fights, whether these fighters are just starting off, they only have a couple of fights, or they're seasoned veterans like Jesse Arnett. And you saw that. But the big thing is their goal is to give a platform for a lot of these Arab fighters. And that was what the second night was all about. So to see the excitement and hear the excitement of the crowd supporting the Arab fighters, and I've seen it before. I mean, you go to Montreal to call fights, and they want the local people to win, and right. It makes fun, and they're supporting their local athletes, and that's awesome. And I love the fact that Jesse Arnett gets that, and he gets to play heel, and he played the heel absolutely perfectly. I know a lot of people hate the pro wrestling and mixed martial arts comparison, but that's tough. The fact is, mixed martial arts was born from professional wrestling, and Jesse is just one of the very, very few people that really understand it and can embrace it. And he's the type of fighter that I love to watch. A guy that really understands every single facet of the game and absolutely plays it up. Because the first and foremost, you can't focus on mic skills. Your goal is to focus on winning fight skills. And Jesse knows how to win fights. I was there. I saw him win the title. And anybody that complains about the way he won a title, he put the Ali AlQaisi threw a kick. He slipped. Jesse jumped on him and threw those elbows, and he cut him wide open. And it's not his fault. The doctor said, no, this fight can't continue. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. So, but the whole scenario, it's like I said, it was just a great 2 nights. And that's what I'm saying with AlQaisi, this guy, you would have thought you're talking about the, who could I compare him to? Like, not Volkanovski, because people don't seem to love Volkanovski,
but he's incredible. Volkanovski.
No, Volkanovski, I'm saying from a skill standpoint, but I just watched the thing saying that people boo him and they talk crap about him. And it's like, I don't understand. And the same thing back in the day with Dan Cormier. A lot of people booed him for years and years. And something switched. Thank God something switched. Now the fans absolutely love Cormier. And I'm sure that Volkanovski, that's going to happen for him.
Well, they love Volkanovski in Australia and in New Zealand, and I'm not saying that they don't in the US and Canada, but I think he gets more props in his territory. But yes, I want to go back to the Jesse Arnett versus Ali AlQaisi. Obviously, it was for the UAE Featherweight title. If people are watching this interview right now, please make sure you watch the fight on FightPass, because it was actually quite an entertaining fight. What I'd like to know from your perspective, you guys were calling this right from the top. Lead us through round one from what you recall in terms of both performers, both competitors, and their overall performance. What were you I'm sure you've rewatched the fight, right?
I actually haven't rewatched the fight.
Oh, you haven't?
I haven't. I've only rewatched the ending of the fight. I just actually got back last night. Okay. And it just was a long trip, like I said, because of as soon as that fight was done, I had a show the next day to worry about. So,
right.
And then on top of that, I got to hang out with all these guys. Like after, I was so thrilled to call Jesse's fight because Jesse's one of my friends. So to be able to go and celebrate with him after he won the championship, I mean, that was just, those are some of the moments that I love about being involved in this, is that I have the great fortune of getting to go behind the curtain sometimes to hang out with these guys. Like the day of the fight, we're all having breakfast. It's Jesse's there, his brother's there, his coaches are there. Ali AlQaisi, who fights in Unified MMA, he was there. Tanner Boser, UFC heavyweight, was there with us. So we're all there just having a great time talking about stuff and just having laughs. And those are some of the moments that I absolutely love, because we get to share some cool stories, and just you get to hear, what it takes for some of these guys to be professional mixed martial artists, because Jesse's a seasoned veteran fighting for a title around the world. Tanner Bozer's one of the top heavyweights on planet Earth. Ali AlQaisi's this up and coming emerging star. And so just to get to hear, stories about MMA, but stories about their life, you get to hear what the truth is about the status of things. And it's just, to get to be a part of that stuff, and then to deliver for him, I was going nuts for him. I just want to do my part to shine some light on how incredible these athletes are. And, because I remember the fight, and I normally don't score fights. I don't like scoring fights myself, because I know it's not perfect. So even if I think that, okay, well, I think he won this round, or I think he won this round, it doesn't really matter. It's at the end of the day, it's whatever these judges, I know what I've seen, because there's lots of times where I watch a fight where I don't even care about this decision. I just know what I watched.
Right.
So it's irrelevant to me what the judges saw. I know what I saw. So what I saw before the stoppage was, I saw a competitive championship fight. I saw that Jesse was in trouble when AlQaisi put him in that guillotine choke, and Jesse told me that. My throat was a little sore after that. So I know how tight this was, but it was back and forth, and these are the things that happened. Jesse was ready to go 25 minutes. So, and I know AlQaisi was ready to go 25 minutes, but the fact is that's what happened, is that he threw a kick, he fell, Jesse jumped on him and did what he had to do to finish the fight. And then whatever happened after that just added to the incredible storyline.
Yeah, it was certainly interesting, because the first round, it seemed like the volume of strikes and just the movement from AlQaisi was he was on the offensive, and obviously his opponent was equally on the offensive, maybe more countering more, but he took him down, I believe, in the first round. Arnett took him he took him down, and he also had some good boxing, but it seemed like the volume of just, when you see someone very active.
And the speed. AlQaisi had the speed, and he had the mobility, and he landed lots of punches. Jesse, and he even said that to me. He's like, he felt off the mark, because there's lots of times when Jesse missed him, and he missed him by a big margin. So,
and it was his first time. I believe it was his first time fighting at 145, right?
145 pounds.
Right.
That's right.
For Arnett. So, but what's interesting, because I watched it a couple of times, John, and I must say, I think the way you described it is definitely it, in terms of that second round. AlQaisi, he threw a kick, lost his balance, he fell, and Arnett completely capitalized on it. He capitalized on the situation, as you mentioned, and he dropped that hellacious elbow. And I think it was one elbow, the first elbow, and he just cracked him open, and at that point, what was, from your advantage as a commentator there, what was the vibe like in there? Because we could hear the fans. AlQaisi's, man, this guy's got fans all over the place. It seems like they were all in that arena.
Yeah. He was, he's a big star there. And, he's just one of these guys. That's what you want in a fighter. You want a guy that's aggressive. You want a guy that represents this. He's there. He's a very, very proud guy. Proud first fighter to represent Jordan to go to the UFC. Right. So, you know what I mean? Those are big things. So Jesse is standing in front of his dreams of getting back to the UFC. You know what I mean? So emotion is high, and, all it takes is one mistake, and maybe it wasn't a mistake. He's thrown a kick and he slipped. Those are things, like I said, those are things that happen. But you have to win all these moments. That's what makes this sport absolutely crazy, is that you have to win. You got to try to win every moment, and you can't always be winning every moment, but you have to try to win these every single moment, because if you don't win every single moment, moments like this happen.
Right.
Where you might be the better skilled fighter. You might have, the better arsenal, But if you make that error, and the error was, if it's just like the Chris Weidman thing, should he have thrown that kick? Luke Rockhold pounced on him, just like Jesse pounced on AlQaisi, and all it takes is one mistake, and all it takes is one advantage. And Jesse created that advantage with that elbow of his, because that's Jesse's. Even though he's good at punching people in the face, his bread and butter's on the ground. He's a guy that takes you down and beats you up, and as soon as you try to find a way out, he's going to choke you out. And if he can't choke you out, he's still just going to try to beat you up. So, I think the doctor did the right thing, because Jesse was just going to keep hammering that. Like, there's a target there now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, the reality is, look, you create storylines, they get another payday. That's what I want. The fans, the fans got exactly. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's an excellent point, because at that point, when he won and just what happened afterwards, I'm like, man, this is one part of me was like, this is a spectacular way to lead into a rematch. Not only that, he's got a documentary that's being filmed on his journey, right? And
what's funny, this night was supposed to be the culmination of the documentary. This was supposed to be the end of it. He's like, oh man, this is supposed to be it. It's supposed to be over. But now there's a rematch. So it continues. It continues.
I mean, which is brilliant, because it really draws us in. And now, as you mentioned from the top, that now he's the heel, Jesse Arnett, because supposedly before I suppose he was a face. But it's interesting. And there's a lot to say about Arnett and the way, like, his ability to communicate on that mic is gold, man. His promos. And look, I too am a fan of his. In fact, I interviewed you 4 years ago. I don't know if you remember.
I remember. At the Nabil show, of course.
That's right. Here in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. And I mean, you were talking about, or you had mentioned Arnett, and at the time he was fighting at TKO in Montreal and so on. But his mic skills, his ability to just, put everything on the line and story tell, not just the fighting, but just the communicating, is it's a masterclass in marketing and hype, and I think legit hype too. Sorry,
100%. And then the biggest shame about this whole scenario, and I'm glad Jesse is where he is at the UAE Warriors, and he's having a great time. He loves fighting for that promotion, but Jesse should be fighting at the highest level, and Jesse should be fighting for the UFC. He should have been fighting for the UFC for years and years and years, because the reality is, I'm not saying Jesse would win every fight in the UFC, but he'd be like a Jim Miller or Donald Cerrone, where you win 2, you lose 1, you win 3, you lose 1. And the only ones that he's losing are guys like Nate Maness, who are already in the UFC. Like, that's just a fact of facts. Jesse belongs. AlQaisi fought in the UFC. Jesse beat him. So the guy certainly should be competing at the highest level. And you couple that with his mic skills, it's a shame that he's not there.
Yeah, I know it is. And I mean, who knows, it might happen. But as far as winning the UAE featherweight title for Jesse Arnett, that itself, I mean, for anyone really, quite frankly, is a major achievement. John, what are your thoughts on him winning this title? What does it mean for Arnett?
I mean, he was, everybody keeps doubting him. Because he's no spring chicken. He is, and he said this to me, that he's closer to the end of his career than the beginning of his career. He knows that. So for Jesse to win this title, he wasn't supposed to win this fight against the Jordanian. He wasn't supposed to win his last fight against the Russian, and he keeps winning these fights. So, it's awesome what happened. What happened at the end of the fight with AlQaisi going bonkers, and Jesse, I saw an article, MMA Junkie, talking about me going crazy, unnecessarily going crazy. And I was going crazy because I don't think people saw when Jesse jumped on the top of the cage. AlQaisi came running around, and Jesse turned because he saw him running, and Jesse fell off the top of the cage. Oh, wow. He fell off the top of the cage onto the apron. So he, what is that? 7 feet? So he's looking to defend himself against AlQaisi, who's running at him. He falls backwards onto the ring apron, hits that, crashes on that hard, and then falls onto the floor another 5 feet. Xavier Alois coach, George St. Pierre's buddy, Richard Ho, is cage side, and he says to me, I thought he was dead.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't see this. We didn't see this portion.
It says, yeah. If you watch, sorry, you didn't see that. You didn't see him fall?
No, I mean, we saw him jump over, and then from there, from that camera angle, you can't actually see him. Like you can't see anything after that. You hear, you hear the commentators, yourself and everyone, but we didn't actually see what happened outside. And I believe that the camera, cut away to an extreme wide of the whole arena. But
he broke his hand or broke his fingers when he fell.
Okay.
Yeah. It was, so I was going nuts because everybody's trying to, like, what is going on? His coach got punched in the face. Like it was.
Okay.
Oh, it was
I didn't hear this.
Yeah.
We didn't hear any of this. We didn't see.
It was quite a spectacle, and that's why it was very heated in there. And people are saying there's back and forth where AlQaisi's saying that Jesse called him a mother effer, and that he begged the doctor to stop. That Jesse told the referee to stop the fight, and Jesse's like, I never said any of that stuff. He's like, I love being in here. I want to keep smashing. The doctor saved your life. So the whole heated exchange was just absolutely bonkers. And, so I was going crazy because, again, Jesse's my friend. The guy fell really, really hard. The guy could have broken his neck.
Wow.
So,
no, absolutely. And this is interesting that you're mentioning this, because I don't think most fans were aware of what happened because we weren't able to see that. But I must say, when you said what you said, it was interesting too, because you made a very important point about the fact that, what's happening now shouldn't overtake the entire value and purpose of this event. And I think any fan of the sport or any combat sport can respect that point, because it happens sometimes. It's happened before in mixed martial arts. Heck, it's happened in other sports as well. And you made that very key, from a comms perspective, very key, important message that no, this is just, a heated moment that went sideways, and it doesn't represent the overall value of that. Can you tell us why you made that point?
Yeah. I mean, it's because it's not like other sports. You have to, a lot of people have to remember, this isn't basketball. This isn't football or soccer. This is, it's mixed martial arts is lumped into a sport, but there's way more consequences than people realize. And, it's very difficult for people to put themselves into the shoes of these fighters that, like, this is such a stressful environment, and you've worked so hard and you've sacrificed. Like AlQaisi's moved to the US. He lives in the States now to try to ensure his dream of defending this title for his Arab family and his Arab supporters, in hopes of, when he does relinquish this title, that's because he gets called back to the big show, and he gets to truly represent his country and his followers and supporters as he moves on to the big stage. So the stakes are just so high. In addition to that, those stakes are low relative in comparison to the fact that you're facing a supreme athlete who has very, very dangerous abilities, and that can change your facial structure, and it can change your life. Like, I know stories of UFC champions and friends of mine that have been in the room with them where they wake up screaming in the middle of the night because of post-traumatic stress, because they wake up with having this fighter on top of them smashing their heads in. So, like, one of the biggest fighters in the history of the world I'm talking about. So
fascinating.
Yeah, so you're playing for keeps here. So when the emotions and the stress is so high, and AlQaisi would have fought right then. If the doctor hadn't have stepped in, you think he would have gotten out of this fight? Absolutely not. And who knows? He could have won. He could have won. Right.
So I mean, yeah, the pressure was definitely on for everybody. And you're right. And I think the doctor, you know, I have to say, ultimately, at the end of the day, a doctor's decision is a doctor's decision. The official has to abide by it. Yeah. And it's in the best interest of the fighter's health and everyone involved. And he'll get a rematch. And I think they'll get a rematch with a bigger raison d'etre, with a bigger global audience, because now this has gotten everyone's interest, you know. And I mean, they're both excellent fighters, and we want to see this rematch. And at the end of the day, I just think that, you know, the vested interest just got compounded. And I'm curious to see as to how they work this rematch in terms of the storytelling part, because Arnett, I mean, he did 2 interviews, obviously one right after, you know, winning this, and well, one thing I can appreciate about him in terms of his ability to communicate is he's got key points immediately. Like, it's almost like his brain just goes to, you know, key messages. What do I need to translate? And he put over the rematch immediately. He said, let's do this again, you know. And the fans were booing, but all those people booing are going to buy tickets to the rematch, right? But ultimately, for AlQaisi, how do you see him beating Jesse Arnett? How would AlQaisi, learning what he's learned now, because it seems like Arnett says he has the formula to beat AlQaisi yet again. So what do you think he's going to do?
I mean, Jesse, I mean, you know, I understand what Jesse's saying, but that's in a perfect scenario. That's in a perfect scenario where he gets the takedown. Now he said he didn't have the ability to wrestle or to do jiu-jitsu camps for this fight. He's like, as soon as I get myself into a situation where I can do this, it's going to be a bloodbath. And I'm paraphrasing. So, but for AlQaisi, he's going to be like, okay, well, I don't want him on top of me. So I'm just going to minimize any type of scenario where I am left on one foot. So I was being very successful by using my mobility and just my speed, by throwing combination of punches and being on the offensive and just using constant movement. And I mean, that seems like it's his path to victory, and I would not be surprised if that's the strategy. So mobility is key, because he cannot be a standing target for Jesse to grab a hold of his legs and put him on his back and do exactly what we know Jesse's capable of. So I think, but he's a proud dude. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, you know what, I'm going to put you on your back. So he's a complete mixed martial artist, and he trains with good people and good coaches, and he has a ton of bodies to work with. And, you know, it's mixed martial arts. You know, like you can say that you have a game plan, but until, like, I'm sure Rodolfo Vieira didn't expect to be choked out in the UFC, one of the top jiu-jitsu guys on planet Earth. But it's not jiu-jitsu, it's mixed martial arts. So, you know, you can come from a kickboxing background and you come into MMA and still be knocked out. So it all depends on so many things. And when is that next fight? When is AlQaisi? That cut is huge. So it's going to take a while for that to heal. And then he has to get into training camp. So, but I mean, there's also, you're developing skills. Once he goes back to the gym, he's adding to his toolbox and his arsenal. So every time these fighters get into the cage, you would expect they're just better versions. Now Jesse, I mean, they both have information. That's why I love these fights, because they're world-class fighters, and it's obvious when you watch them. And when you see these world-class fighters and world-class athletes that have access to, Jesse was training at Sanford MMA. So when you have access to, you know, camps like that, and the ability to go abroad to train, to get good bodies, I mean, it's absolutely key.
It certainly is. And I mean, overall, I think this match was a very interesting one. And I think everyone's looking forward to seeing the upcoming rematch. We don't know when it's going to be, of course, but I think you're looking for it. I'm looking for it. And most people watching this interview are looking for it. But beyond, I'm going to move on from this match because I swear, I think I could talk to you about it for another hour.